Yo, can you man hear
I
me?
like what you said, Sean, about how you
Okay.
were emphasizing, how a lot of parents today felt a goodness of the way that sexual education was conducted in the past. So there is an agreement that sexuality should be talked about in schools. The disagreement is whether it should just be purely heteronormative or if we should include all aspects of sexuality.
It's a
I
lot,
don't think
bro.
that we're doing demonstrations to encourage children how to have sex, but this is something that we are trying to, again, educate and make them aware that this
Are these all
kind of thing
teachers,
happen.
chat?
And while you grow up, you're going to have to experience somebody who's of this orientation.
Kids are naturally curious, and I think that what I'm hearing from you is I understand where you're maybe potentially coming from, but then where's the line between that sex education and introducing them to porn? Because porn can be educational. I was a virgin when I got married, and for years I was made fun of and heard, well, how are you going to know if you don't try it? We hear that a lot too. If you haven't tried to
That's
kiss a girl
true.
to see if you like it or not, then how do you really know that you're not a lesbian? How do you really know that you're not gay if you've never slept with a guy? How do you really know that you want to be in a monogamous relationship if you don't sleep around? And when you start to introduce those questions to children, specifically,
Yo, their mind's
prepubescent
about to
ones,
be curious as
they're going
fuck.
to naturally be curious, and their emotional and hormonal maturity is not there to be making those types of decisions that have lifelong
Completely agree
impact.
that.
Well, you're right, and a lot of them are learning at home because just like you guys are saying, they come home to tell you things. Well, guess what? Those same kids come to school to talk about what you're telling them at home. You'll be surprised what I hear from students when I do a "What do you think?" Well, let me tell you what my mama and daddy did. And look, I don't have time. Your kid is not that important to me. Not to be rude, I got like 300 students. Your kid is no more important than the other 299. So I don't have time to sit up here and let me get you to think like me. I can't get my own 23-year-old to think like me. At the end of the day, what needs to happen, and this is just my own personal take,
Okay.
parents need to start being parents because a lot of times the teachers are the parents. They're parenting your kids. Because
Okay. Yeah.
Absentee parenting.
I think that this conversation
good.
is really
That's
interesting, and I think we need to step back and look at why we automatically assume that if we're telling our children about lesbians, gay people, queer people, why do we immediately equivocate that to telling them about what sex is? That can just be something as simple as, here is a book. In this book, there are two dads.
No.
This book character has two dads. And kids, they can be inquisitive, and that's good, right? But also, like, they're gonna be like, cool, there's two dads.
All these kids know that there's a dad and a dad and a mom and a mom, and the culture is teaching all of that. So what we've noticed is that the curriculum in 8th grade and up is a lot deeper than that. It's more like,
Interesting.
here is how you can have sex so you do not get pregnant.
Yeah.
Illustration of anal sex. That is the stuff that we're now reacting
Anal?
to.
What the
that,
fuck?
Sadly, is
Yo,
the trust
I didn't get this shit.
broken
You get me?
between teachers and parents.
Yeah, and I think we're moving into a conversation about comprehensive sex ed. What I am talking about is when I go into this classroom and I'm teaching kids, I'm not going to just teach kids material that is heteronormative.
Out of curiosity, it sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to introduce all ways of life. Like these are the people that you will encounter with throughout life.
That is what I'm arguing, yes.
So would it be okay to include a book with a man having a relationship with a 12-year-old in that book? I know
See,
it's
that's-
extreme.
No,
Oh.
because now
Hear
you're
me out.
equivocating gay people to pedophiles.
No, I'm not.
And no, that's
I'm-
not okay.
That is
No,
not-
no,
not.
you're drawing a line that I'm not drawing. And, the
And you're
reason I-
definitely crossing the line. That
I
should
agree.
never be
I agree. It is.
crossed.
I agree. And this is why I'm bringing it up: is who establishes the boundary.
The law.
But what
Period.
law? The law. The law is.
The law.
But the law that's been signed in in
No,
some
no,
blue
I'm
states,
sorry. No,
they
there's
do.
laws against between adults having sex with children. Now, if a student had two parents who happen to be of the same sex, I'm not going to sit there and discount who they are in my class. I cannot do that. I signed a contract.
I would never ask anybody to uplift or suppress any child. I want there to be equality in the classroom. What I am saying is that there are factual instances where this is being taught in classrooms. I pulled my children out of public school because there are so many instances of this happening. I am a parent. I'm looking in the book bag every day. I'm checking in with homework. I am talking to the teachers and the principals, and I'm involved. But we didn't know that, during class, there were images shown of literal sex acts or describing certain situations that were
This is the talkie
inappropriate
position.
for young children.
We have a belief.
I can't. I never learned that shit. The most I really saw was like the genitalia. I think the most sex acts is crazy. We never learned that. We just saw each gender's genitalia, and then we saw a baby get like a baby. What's it called? A woman being pregnant, basically. Just get me pushing out my baby. That's all we saw, really. I can't lie. I don't even remember like I don't even remember what's it called. We didn't really learn about it, even in like the Catholic school too, which is crazy. All we learned about was mainly like don't really send like nudes and shit. That's about it. I can't lie.
Things. That's just what we do. And we're trying to confine them to a set of beliefs to say, this is what is right in our home. And we're seeing the schools get funding from Planned Parenthood. They tried to pass a bill to put medical facilities to offer abortions in high schools here in California. And it's gradual,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
It starts with, this is a book that has 2 dads. This is a book with 2 moms. And it's just a gradual curiosity that could leverage and break away that child from the root in the home.
My education growing up was fully public education. College is where I started getting a curiosity for truth and education, and I think I'm so passionate about the education system today because it is obviously broken, but how do we fix it? Many of these progressive ideas in fixing it is just more empathy, sympathy, safety, but in reality, I see the public school system isn't actually accomplishing the goal of what education is, which is teaching critical thinking, how to understand, how to ask good questions, and then comprehend how to problem solve.
Affirmative action is racial discrimination.
What's that mean? Affirmative action. Okay, what does that mean? Affirmative action is the practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups known to have been discriminated.
There was a high school
Okay.
down the street from
That's
where I live
interesting.
in Los Angeles that encouraged all the kids of color to apply for their school play. And only once all the kids of color received whatever positions they wanted, then the white kids could
That's bad.
apply. That, in my opinion, is an example of discrimination. The fact that right now
No shit.
Harvard has black-only kids' dorms, that to me
Holy
is
fuck.
segregation.
With affirmative
Black
action,
only.
Harvard lawsuit,
What the fuck, Harvard?
backfiring.
Yo, what they play with that?
Choosing of which minorities can and
Yo!
cannot have success. It
The
was
hell?
done to try to create or make up for the wrongs
These men
in
are
our
just-
past, but I think it's really
At that point, you're just forcing it, bro. You're just forcing
Including
color.
those
Like,
excelling students in other races to fix the problems of the past, like you said. But I think the past, there were a lot of minorities that were excelling and doing really well.
I still find it crazy that there's more slaves nowadays than there was during slavery. That just still like it's still just it's out. It's crazy.
of the government and like
When they mean slaves, it could be slaves to the system. You get me? Slaves to the government.
have that discrimination in any
Slaves
way,
to the prison
but
system.
Unfortunately, it has become a discrimination against other groups.
Yeah, it's racism. It is racism. If you are taking a group of people and judging them on their race and setting them aside, giving them a special treatment, if you are uplifting a person or you are trying to suppress a person because of their race, that is racism.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to believe that someone like Barack Obama's children are like struggling because they're black? Like, that's ridiculous. So I pulled my oldest daughter out a public school in Florida. We were having debates about pulling down statues and changing names, and
Holy
some of the school board
shit.
members and some of the activist groups were saying that black children could not learn because of names on buildings, and that
What?
is completely asinine to me. It basically says that
the
because
fuck?
we have a higher level of melanin, somehow our brains don't work. And every other kid could walk into the building and get the education that they needed, but somehow not for you black children. And I found that to
That's
be
fucked.
just disgusting. And I did not want my children to have any
That was a
type
good
of
decision.
idea coming from authority figures who believed in such things like that.
First of all, I would like to say that affirmative action programs, the biggest beneficiary according to the data, and this has been government data, has been white women first and foremost. Second of all, I would never use Barack Obama's kids as a barometer for anything because they do have privilege as well as Will Smith kids. But if we talk about Laquan Smith down the street that nobody knows, there will be some impediments based on his race. Yeah.
Why? How do you know that?
Because people do tend to look and see race. What you were talking about is just racism, but when it's institutional and structural, it does something totally different. And when the black wealth gap is 100 years behind the white wealth gap in America, it'll take 100 years to catch up.
Why do you think that's because of racism, though? You take one thing and say that is
He's
the
not. I can't lie. The reason we're behind is not because of racism. I'm not even gonna lie. We've literally enslaved ourselves. It's not because of racism. That's the crazy thing. It's not you. It's literally our own race.
Every person of color.
The data bears out.
What data? What data is saying that black people are behind? Because there are many black people that aren't behind, that are doing much better.
Oh, she does.
No, you're absolutely right.
She doesn't think that black people are behind. God.
And there are outliers in every single community.
I wouldn't say they're behind in like how smart they are, but just in general, like when you compare to other races, yes, we're literally at the bottom of the food chain.
Members of
That's
the
a fact.
community that are very affluent. There are also a majority that live in poverty. And if we see a bunch of cities that are
Just look at I can't lie. Look at the data of people going into prisons. You get me? What race they are? People going into like 9 to 5, like bad jobs. Well, we're literally like we're doing it to ourselves. That's why they would say that we are behind because of the types of things that we do. Like the majority of our race does. You get me? There may be like the odd one that makes it out of the. You get me? Makes it out of the hood. You get me? It's very, very, very smart. They're not saying that when they say behind, they don't mean like in like terms of like how smart they are, but in terms of like how successful a majority of black people are. That's what they mean by they're behind. Because compared to the amount of white, you get me, other races, we are there's not as many public figures as there are of the other races. You get me?
why have these
And also, bro, when we do become successful, it's mainly either NBA star or a rap or rapping. You get me? We need to. I can't like as a black community. We need to branch out of them two categories because right now we're getting categorized as them two. If we branch out and like even it could be into like any other sector, like bro, even business. If we start branching out and more people become successful, they won't just categorize us in those categories. And it'd be so much better.
places stayed at a very stable poverty line, but there are.
But that's what they mean by like we're behind because of the percentage of amount of black people in poverty. That's why they say that we are behind, not because of like not that we're dumber or some shit.
To why these communities are like that? How would you say that?
I would say probably because of policies that are in those cities.
Racist policies. Absolutely.
Hold on, we gotta define terms. When would you say that Watson Compton became the way that it is? Was it like that in the 40s and 50s?
No, it's a growth.
No,
because
I'm
of the
asking
policies,
you,
from
when-
redlining policies that were enabled from
In California?
Yeah, absolutely. California put in racist policies. I would never deny that.
All of these supposed solutions are actually hurting. Wouldn't a better solution be to teach our kids that we're all born in the image of God? We should all treat one another equally.
Not everyone's.
Or if you don't
Okay,
believe
then
in
all men
God,
should be
then
created
we're all
equal with certain
and we're all
amendments.
equal, right? If you come from a poor neighborhood, whether you're black or Hispanic or an immigrant from anywhere, obviously you don't have the same privileges that somebody who comes from a wealthy community, but that has nothing to do with your color. I don't think that if you're an impoverished black kid or you're an impoverished white kid, one should receive a resource and the other shouldn't.
Would you say that it's economic then is the reason that causes these disparities?
Economic, but I don't think it's related to color.
But would you say if there's a majority of a particular group that lies underneath the poverty line in economic, that race has anything to do with that?
It could, but it's just not blanket. You don't know. And why don't we look at the families, the black families, who have done those amazing things in this country?
But why? They're minuscule to the actual. She's talking about fucking. Yeah, me. She's talking about. She's not getting the question. Like she's talking about like minuscule, like rare occurrences. Get me? Minuscule, rare occurrences. You need to talk about majority. Bro, why are you calling me, bro?
They did to succeed instead of just focusing on oh, well, black people are behind and we don't even know what to do. Well, why don't we just go and look? Since you are a professor, wouldn't that be, you go and look at what has worked?
Well, I would never just go to you and just look at you. And I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the data. And so what I share...
Data can be broken up in umpteen different ways.
No, it can't.
Yes, it
No,
can.
actually, I just give
You're a
the data.
professor and you're saying
That's
that
why I
data
give
cannot
data.
be manipulated?
I don't
This is why
manipulate
my
data.
kids do not go
I
to
don't-
public
I
school
don't-
anymore.
I don't, and I'm glad they don't.
I just think it's interesting. I'm thinking of like an anecdotal story I have. Last year, the school that I taught at, Deep East Oakland, I served majority black and brown students. Over 70% of our families under the poverty line. These are some of the hardest working people I have ever seen in my life. They get up, they have 2 or 3 jobs, 3 or 4 children.
I would argue
because of their economic
No,
status, right?
because of liberal policies that is the government telling them that they can and cannot succeed because of how high our property taxes are here, because we do not have school choice where they can take their dollars somewhere else. If you put those same families in redder districts in the country, like places in Florida and Texas or Virginia, where they have better options for their family, you would definitely see them be able to
And where
succeed at
black
different.
and brown children are still underperforming in schools?
But coming from Florida, the school that I was at, it's graded from like A to like D, F. When I started there, it was a C school. Very poor performing. And technically, sure, they have school choice. They don't have state tests anymore. But they're still so badly performing. The community of it, black, brown, very little white students in that community. But not to say that student of color can't be more affluent, but I think it's ridiculous to kind of say that color doesn't play a part into disparities and just disadvantages. So in Florida...
Wait, so that the other women are saying that race doesn't take a play in when it comes to like just how well they do. Is that what she's trying to say?
That I had encountered.
She's saying that someone that lived in poverty that is white, someone that lived in poverty that is black. They're saying that they have an even amount of opportunities because opportunities aren't dictated by race. Is that what they're trying to say?
Weren't kind to others, and sometimes I would have coworkers call students retarded and using racist slurs and things like that. And from my standpoint, hearing something like that, it disgusted me. My coworkers very quickly were able to kind of distinguish me from the rest. Like if I was gonna come to the teacher's lounge, more hushed conversation, people wouldn't share as much as they used to just because I would call out behavior like that.
Teachers with guns make schools safer.
Oh, oh, they're tripping. Holy shit.
You know what? I'm gonna disagree.
So I was really in
That's
between. I
crazy.
didn't really know how I felt about this issue at first. But then I started looking at places that had armed their teachers. So I believe that
don't know.
is good. It has to be
I don't know how I feel about
Yes,
this
the
one.
Teachers have to want to do it themselves. They have to be well trained.
Yes.
They have to have background checks periodically. That has been successful.
If we're trusting teachers, which in some cases we do, in some cases we don't, but if my mindset is that if we're going to trust teachers to mold our children's minds and educate them, they're there for 8 hours a day. We should also trust and kind of enable them to protect themselves and our kids physically.
I think by no means should we ever force a teacher to carry a gun, but if a teacher is willing to take on the responsibility of learning how to handle a weapon properly, I think that we should allow them to do that for us, and it frankly would be an incredible service to us.
I fought with that. I can't lie. It does make sense.
All right, so just to break it open,
feel-
this conversation is so much more nuanced than to arm or not to arm. And if you want to save a school, you need to get parental engagement. Let's look at the mindset of the individuals that are going into these homes with firearms. Those individuals are not mentally okay. There's something wrong happening, whether it's at school, in the house, whether it's, who knows, maybe it's something they're consuming online. And I think that's the parents' job to continue to engage to make sure.
I agree.
Healthy. A lot of these kids.
I agree that it is parental, like majority of school shooters are literally like they've been bullied and they're not getting the help that they need, and they're mentally, like he said, mentally not stable. So I think that's like for school shooters, like it won't stop. I feel like it won't stop them if they, even if teachers have guns, it won't stop them from fucking, you get me, still doing it. If you're someone that's mentally unstable, you don't think before you do it. Like, you'll just do it.
As well, that are going into schools that are not mentally healthy. They're coming from single parent households. They're living with their grandparents. There's something intrinsically with their identity that's broken. And I think that whether you arm a school or you don't, it's not going to change it if you don't address the real issue.
I agree with you that people that are, perpetrating these crimes and these like mass casualties are messed up individuals. I would absolutely agree. Mass shootings are a uniquely American problem. So if we try to understand what's the root, why is America solely have that problem, I would say it's a gun culture problem. So if the idea is, should we try to remove aspects of gun culture that really pervade in our society, should we do that, or should we just increase the amount of firearms we can have in every single space, just so that way we're properly ready for a gunfight whenever it comes up?
I want to clarify gun culture. Are you saying that there's like the shoot 'em up, bang 'em up video games? Or are you saying
no? I wouldn't say it's video games. I'd say institutions like the NRA that heavily
imagine getting influenced by that. That's another mental thing. If you get influenced to kill a whole human because of what you see in a video game, that's just mentally, you're fucked.
Just firearms, but as many.
How dumb are you?
I personally would not like to be armed. I do not want to take lethal action in the classroom, and I want to make it a safe and inclusive environment. Arming teachers is a response measure to particular violence that goes on in our schools here in America. And personally, I think we should focus more towards solutions to prevent these occurrences from happening, rather than just implementing responses implying that these actions will occur.
And I'm just going to be honest with you, you don't want me to have a gun, because I had to go back to therapy in the last few months, and so I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, what your plan was, but I would also say mental health. We got to understand, some of these school shootings are done because people have snapped.
People have natural biases and things like that, and people could act on those biases. Then they could be guns drawn and not a clear mind, As a parent, how would you feel knowing that you don't know which teachers have a gun and you've had bad experiences with prior teachers?
That's
what
true.
If that teacher that absolutely,
So
blown up
my answer to your question is, I feel the same way about the guard in front of my kid's school. I don't really know the guard, but he's gone through training, and I presume that he knows what he's doing. And frankly, I feel the same way about a police officer. I don't need the police officer, but they've gone through training and they were willing to take on that responsibility. And so I would apply the same logic. It's so interesting that you bring that up.
That's reasonable. That's very reasonable.
Careful about how much responsibility we're saddling teachers with teaching our kids values, right? On the one hand, the system is saying, trust our teachers, they know better than you parents. We should be able to teach them what they need to know about sexuality. On the other hand, you guys are admitting that many teachers are not really checked for mental issues. We don't really know what is happening in these classrooms.
Neither are policemen.
Not checked. We very frequently have like professional development days where we got self-care. So I wouldn't say many by any means. And when I'm coming into the workplace, I'm not bringing in all my baggage. As to say, you go into your work, you're not like, oh, I'm so depressed, my kid's this,
So
that.
why, if there is a teacher who is willing to step forward and will go through the training and will go through the screening, why not empower them to save our kids? I mean, in Uvalde, if there was a teacher who could actually save those children, then maybe we would not have seen so much death.
When we place teachers with a firearm in the classroom, it takes the instance of a violent occurrence from a possibility in the minds of these children to an inevitability.
But the children don't know. It is a concealed and carry weapon that has gone through the process of the local sheriff's department, background check, training, checkups,
no one knows
everything.
But the teacher
No one knows.
and the police
I have
department.
a logistical question.
Yeah.
Does this teacher have the gun on them?
Yes.
You wouldn't
It is
know.
holstered on them?
At all times.
It's a concealed carry.
It should never be in a place of a child.
It's illegal
No,
to
I know what a
brandish.
concealed
I
carry
just
is,
want to
but
clarify.
my thing and why this question sort of enrages me. Why are we asking teachers to carry guns? When did this become an occupational hazard? When did we walk into school and people were like, by the way, you could be shot
That's
today,
so true.
so maybe you want to have your
That's so true.
Because who knows? This might be your last day on earth. That is ridiculous. If you
That's so
15 years
true.
ago were to look at a teacher and be like, hey, do you want to hold this gun with you? Like you might need it. They're going to scratch their heads and look at you funny. It's opening up a bigger conversation, right? But I think that even though it is voluntary, right, we still need to have this conversation. Like it still needs to happen of why, even if a teacher was willing to carry a gun to school, they are even having to be asked to do that in the first place.
She's got a very good point. The fact in America nowadays, you can't even like take your kid to school and The fact you can't even take your kid to school, and you're still there sitting worrying, hopefully that a school shooting just doesn't that comes out of nowhere. You're just praying. The fact that your kids aren't safe in schools in America is crazy. It's supposed to be the safest place. Well, not the safest place, but like nothing's supposed to happen. No weapons. You get me? No one's carrying weapons. No one's got knives on them. Like it's supposed to be a safe space where you can free speech, everything. But nowadays you literally have to worry for your kid for taking them to a school that is supposed to, you get me, where they're supposed to feel protected. It's crazy, man. It's actually crazy. What's the question? Teachers are not paid enough. Agree.
Every day I wake up and I hand to you guys the most precious thing in my entire life, my children. I think that it's important that our society will reflect how much we value you guys.
They work a fucking lot, I'm not even gonna lie.
If you do a great job, if you're able to represent all of us as Americans, both conservatives and liberals, and you're able to speak on our behalf and take care of our children, we should reward you for that, and you should feel rewarded for that. And so I don't know exactly what you make, but I think it is really important that we invest in you and we pour into you. And when I see the entire budget that the state of California, for example,
they are extremely important.
And I realize that a sliver fraction of it only goes to you guys. It breaks my heart, and frankly, it makes me so angry. I don't need more bureaucrats. I need more good teachers.
I left the K through 12 and went to the community college, and I do pretty well. So I'm going to be clear with that. But also, I have a master's.
So you're not oppressed. Thank
so
God.
I have a master's, but I had to work really hard to get where I'm at. But I'm also in a doctoral program, and you're right. I'm paying out of pocket too. Again, I had a student the other day saying, I can't pay my electric bill. How much is your electric bill? I'll pay your electric bill. And so I put up students in hotels because they have nowhere to live. I have a student who doesn't have a family. He told me the other day, I need a dad. So I'll be your father. Because it just broke my heart that a 19-year-old is in this world alone, doesn't have family.
Yeah,
that's beautiful, man.
Calculate how much I spent for my classroom, right? Like all the materials, all the things that I'm purchasing, all the things that I'm doing, and it's just interesting to think that we are always told, like, teachers are heroes, they're teaching the youth of America, but also we're not going to give you enough money to survive comfortably. Like, you're going to struggle every day. There have been days when I go to work and I'm like, am I going to have money to put gas in my car? I guess we're going to find out, right? And I know so many other teachers who are struggling to...
I'm surprised that not everyone agreed with it.
I can't even think about having a family as a teacher. I think that growing up, I was not the strongest student. I didn't necessarily see the point in what we were doing. And I think that ultimately that felt like it was because education was something that I had.
I feel like she's a primary teacher, school teacher,
that I was obtaining. But I think what really pushed me to go into teaching was wanting to give kids a space where they didn't feel the way I feel growing up, where they felt like they had power to make choices in their education, and that their education could be powerful in aiding them to do what they wanted to do.
So I'm not a teacher. I don't know how much you guys make. And I'm not going to use you as the example. I'm going to use a friend of mine. She's been at a school for a number of years. I want to say it's 6, 7, 8 years, and she's become tenured. And through her tenureship, she's accumulated so much wealth. I'm appalled at how much she's making because she teaches Spanish to 6th graders, and she's making over $150,000 a year.
Can I ask you a question? What kind of school does she work at?
Public school.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so
I mean, how much experience goes on with that too?
It must, I'm assuming, because you've invested into your career, which I think everybody should. But for me, I look at it
holy fuck, 6 figures.
In 9 months.
The prompt very clearly was, are teachers paid enough?
Yes.
And I mean, we're not. I've had to work second jobs doing DoorDash just because I wasn't making enough.
Wow.
If you look at these shoes, they are ripped, they are broken. From a teacher wish list, I could not even buy these shoes myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't make enough money.
So I wanted to clarify, this isn't an absolute. I'm not saying that every teacher...
How the fuck is she making 150, bro?
No idea any of those details.
She's getting paid well.
Recognizing that if a teacher is getting 9 months and their salary is in 9 months, they get a summer off. Most of society isn't given 3 months to just go on
That's assuming
vacation.
they have 3 months. I'm an 11-month employee. For 1 whole month out of the year, I'm not paid anything. Nothing. I have to figure out my funds, save money that I don't have.
That's true. You don't get leave.
For a month.
You don't even get paid when you
I don't get supplementary income. Like, that doesn't happen.
That's fucked.
Critical race theory is anti-American.
Fuck is that?
My daughter, same teacher actually, who was asking about her pronouns. She said that she was going to be introducing some race-themed books. My daughter recorded this
Oh
conversation in
no.
class.
This is
So
when they
what
say
ended
the
up
name,
happening,
innit?
She started to talk to the children in their
This is when they
I
say
guess,
this
identity
shit.
groups. Oh, as an African American child, how are you discriminated against? As an Asian child, she went through all of except white people. It became total chaos in the classroom. There was no education going on here. They were just literally going at each other, talking about who was more oppressed. It's not a matter of if something was racist, it's a matter of when something was racist or how the racist thing happened. So they automatically assume, critical race theorists,
Jesus,
that racism
yo,
is
schools.
embedded
Oh no, schools seem fucked in America, you know. I know, deep it chat. Oh, schools seem fucked. I never like, bro. You get me? We were never read any of them books in you get me? In my school. It's crazy.
every single thing.
Never.
How do you look a child, specifically a black child, in the eye and tell them, I'm sorry for you because of your skin color? There's no hope for you in the greatest country literally for them, because black Americans are the most successful black people in the entire world. And then turn around and look at a white child and say, sorry, you're responsible for the atrocities of 200 years ago.
All I have to add to that is that in our home and with our faith, I teach my children that it is awful to make someone feel hopeless or pitied. You're damning them to a future of failure if you are telling them, oh, I pity you and I'm going to do these things for you, instead of coming alongside them and supporting them and doing something
very
for
good.
themselves that pulls them out of that hopelessness. And I think that those are two of the worst things that we can do as a broader society.
You know what I love about America? My mother immigrated from Morocco. She's a Jewish person. Everywhere around the world, we're known as the Jew. In America, we're known as American. And I think there's something so powerful about empowering any community to be American and to succeed based on your own merit. We don't look back into why.
God, you're really in a bubble. Jesus, this man be in bubble. She said in like everywhere around the world we are called a Jew. Bro, you clearly haven't been around the world then. You get me? Bro, in England we do not call anyone Jews, bruv. You get me? We just call you, like, you get me, English, like, you're English.
We look into why we can. And so when my family taught me since I was a little girl, I can, I learned that I could. And that's why I think this country has empowered me so much. I want to see the same thing for kids of all colors in the United States.
That's not how it works, buddy.
If we're teaching them that there is no hope for them,
You Jewish
and that
people are on
will
top,
always
bruv.
look at them in a different
Man are on
way,
top
then how are they
still.
gonna hear the message of
Our
our
community is
My
on
question for
top, bro.
liberal teachers is,
You man don't get any hate or anything. The only hate that you got was maybe what Kanye said, bro, in a long time. And then everyone was like, oh my god, anti-Semitic. You get me? No one's been like, I've heard nothing about the Jew, like anyone. No one's demonized the Jewish community. It could be in videos, but bro, you got the baby on the cross, bruv, on a burning cross. Literally, like why is it always targeted to Christianity? It's like
that it's the right place for
I don't
them
know,
to
man.
impose liberal
Oh,
ideas. in
fuck, man, I
classrooms,
just
knowing
bet
that
my-
we have many students who come from
It's
conservative
crazy, man.
families. And I find that many of the schools have become battlegrounds for those kinds of ideas. And when teachers are bringing those issues to the classrooms, it's forcing families and conservative kids to have to address these issues. And we believe that they're simply too young to deal with those kinds of complex matters at that age.
Okay, so first of all, I think we need to define what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is a theory that Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw and a bunch of former Harvard law students came up with, where they theorize that within certain American laws, racism is just embedded. And so
Agree.
I'm sorry for your experience, because you shouldn't have to go through that. Nobody should have to go through that. I don't tell my son you can't do anything. I have told my son you have to work twice as hard. I have to tell my son you're a black man in America. There's certain things you need to do to survive.
First, I think the idea that we are teaching children in critical race theory in schools is ridiculous. As he pointed out, this is a high level, like university level framework. You are not gonna walk into like Isabel's elementary school 5th grade classroom and see Isabel telling these people about the legal structures. In my opinion, how I define myself as an American, right? I define myself as someone who is proud
She looks
of my
Mexican.
country, someone who can look at the mistakes that my country has made in the past and the things that are keeping other people oppressed and recognize that these are still existing and that we need to work towards changing that. So I don't see how critical race theory could be anti-American, because that's how I define American. And I think it's very nuanced because people define American in many different ways,
I actually
right?
don't completely disagree with your definition of it. I think that maybe you think it's systemic and I think it's the individual. But I think that even in nuanced ways, like the example that she gave, I've heard examples where my nieces have been segregated in the classroom at 4th and 5th grade. And like, well, did this happen to you? Do you have a 2-parent home? Are your grandparents raising you? And like, there's this line of victimhood. And as a woman that has dealt with sexism, I do definitely teach my daughters, like as a girl in this country, it is going to be a different experience than your father had. But I don't think it's beneficial at all to kind of institute that victimhood in their long-term mentality, because then you actually start to see kids that are like, oh, well, they're different than me, so therefore their life could be better or worse than mine. And instead of engaging with those people, they step away.
I don't
Yeah.
believe that there's a victimhood to it. I think it's just kind of amplifying that, hey, this is the truth, this is what happens, and let's move forward with that. Having that knowledge to be able to kind of navigate through life is better than just, oh, well, I assume I'm the same as, you know, my white counterpart.
You're not.
Oh, why is she able to do this? Why does she have this opportunity that I don't have?
But they are the same.
But she has that
They
opportunity.
are the same, is what we're saying.
I think what the difference is, we're stating normative statements, and you guys are claiming that we're presenting prescriptive claims. So the normative statement that we're presenting is, these events happen in American history. These are the outcomes that have led from those events. What you guys are saying is, we're then adding prescriptive statements, which is, that's why you should never really try, because you'll never make it in this country.
That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you negatively press a child with these thoughts, that
They will
be the
always-
outcome.
yeah.
Because that's how human beings work. This is a psychological fact.
They will always feel like they're worthless, and they can, because of how dark they are or how like thingy they are, they'll never amount to anything. I agree. But I wouldn't just say it's just like
I believe it is the government's job. Look, our
the
funding.
quality of education is the government's job.
I mean,
I
our
disagree.
schools are government entities, so it is. Policies are government. Everything's government. I mean, if you're in public education, you're in government. We're bureaucrats. That's literally what our.
But at the same time, like, it's how you not taking accountability the way you teach, that may be the reason why certain students are not doing as well. You get me? Maybe the way you teach, you're not as like, you're just not a good teacher. You get me, bro? Because I don't know, man. Like, bro, I have to be honest with you, yeah. My school realistically is supposedly one of the best schools in Luton, which is like not a very good place to live. Like, I think they're like one of the worst cities or towns in fucking, you get me, in England. But because I had this one maths teacher, I was when I tell you, bro, I was rubbish at maths. Bro, I was getting 2s, which is like the equivalent to like an F or some shit. I was getting 2s. Like, I was nowhere near passing. You need to get a 4 to pass in England. Get me, your GCSEs. But I was like, I'm never gonna get a 4, bro. I'm just not good at maths. I'm not good at that shit, bro. When I tell you, man, like it matters on what teacher you have, bro. I can't lie. He could have been in the shittiest school, but the fact that he was such a good teacher and he was so engaged, and he just helped you with anything you really wanted, and like set you papers on papers on papers, gave you papers on papers to do, and if you didn't do it, so something would happen. Like, you would have to do after school shit. Like, the fact he pushed you that hard, like, I don't think it would be the government's job. It's literally like how good that teacher is. It's crazy how much of like an impact just one teacher can have on like the way you or the outcome of how you do in that class, or how well you're doing.
Well, it is government's job.
I don't think it is.
So yeah, I believe it is. I believe it is the job of the government, because Schools are government. That's literally what they are. They're government institutions.
Yes, I completely agree. Government provides a certain quality to education.
Okay, yeah, it provides facilities, but you have to make use of the facilities and be a good teacher. You get me? Like, simple as.
Provided those
That's what quality of education is. I agree that if you don't have certain things like, I don't know, like a whiteboard, like an interactive whiteboard, it is a lot harder to teach. I do agree. So I guess it does play a bit of a part, the government, because the government funds that shit. But bro, when I tell you, chat, my school was run down, man. The quality, the only thing we really had was like, we didn't have nice seats, nothing like that. Bro, we just had an interactive whiteboard. If they can afford that in every classroom, you're chilling, bro, and you generally have good teachers, bro, the quality of education will be top notch. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. You get me?
Those policies.
What food you get, like
pro teacher or anything like that. So it really shows in our education, in kids, and all around. We're just not at the quality that other countries are at.
Let's see what everyone else has to say.
Because what a government is, oftentimes is characterized as like this entity of like a group of people up there deciding what goes on. Where, no, like government is just
Illuminati.
Does the government have a role in education? Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that parents have to play a role as well, and not only being involved with what their kid is learning in school.
I'd say
also,
there's parents
reinforcing
and teachers.
Strong educational skills, and that doesn't happen unless there is parent involvement. I know the kids that are being worked on at home versus the kids that aren't. And it plays out in test scores, it plays out in their engagement in class, and it plays out in their behavior.
Yeah.
You have to remember that we're a representative government, that it's based on the people, right? And so these public school systems are waiting for the parents to come in.
I don't know what I would have done like if I didn't revise. I can't lie. Bro, I don't know what I would have failed every GCSE, bro, if I didn't revise, chat. Bro, when I tell you, bro, like, bro, I put my head down. I don't know what happened, bro. I think it was like parents' evening, yeah. When you go into parents' evening, bro, when I tell you, bro, when I went into parents' evening that one time, I think it was year 11 parents' evening, bro. When I tell you, bro, in the car, bro, I nearly cried, fam. Because my results were, I was getting 1s in GCSE. Like that's what my predicted score was for everything was 1s. But then, yeah, instantly after school, yeah, I would like straight revise till like 9, you get me, and then maybe play a couple games like up to like 10 or 11 and go to bed, bro. Just repeat the process, just revise. Got a whole book, everything for each subject. I was like, damn, this is amazing. Once I got to the actual test, I was like, damn, this is amazing, bro. Like, this is a breeze. And bro, I passed every single subject, but half of my science. I was like, you get me? It was like the last test, and I was like, fuck this, bro. It's only science. I didn't really give a fuck. You get me? That's the only one I didn't revise on, was the last science test, because I think everyone was just like, gee, people were just laughing and chatting because it was our last test. But yo, I don't know what I would have done. Some people didn't even have to revise. These men are just naturally just, you get me, screwed on, bro.
And say, this curriculum is not what I want to teach my kids. We, the taxpayers.
But definitely, your parents do play a part, because my parents definitely encouraged me to revise. They were like, no game until you revise.
Communities need to absolutely be more involved in their school boards and what's going on in education. And unfortunately, we don't have that. And oftentimes, a lot of politicians, albeit Republicans that are trying to cut a lot of social programs, a lot of social investment, as well as corporate Democrats who want to cut a lot of social investment. Both of those, we see areas of corruption within our education system.
Well, and let's be clear on what we're talking about government is. So when we talk about on a local level, it is government. That's literally what government is. When your kid goes into the school, they're going into a government institution. So I think when we're not talking about parents not being involved. I want you involved. Heck, please be involved. So I think our issue, when we were talking about government, we weren't talking about excluding parents. We were talking about it is government's job to make this entity, which is public education, function. It has to. If government's not involved, you have no money.
So you guys teach in government schools, public schools. Essentially, you're teaching a diverse student body. You have conservatives, you have liberals. how can you better represent us, half of this country? It's sadly causing us to lose faith in you guys. We want to support you guys. We want to send our kids to your schools and your classrooms.
And I think that when we talk about all these differences, you know, how do we sort of represent both of these sides, right? How do we bring these people together? I think it's also really important to remember that historically this curriculum is one-sided in favor of conservative views, in favor of supporting white students, not students of color, right? And so I think that we really, as a country, need to take a look at our education system. I think we can all agree that there needs to be a lot of change in the system, right? And look at how we can build a system that represents, reflects, validates the experiences and identities of everybody.
Beautiful.
I find it crazy that all this shit only happens in America. Like it's crazy. Like, bro, when I tell you, I was never discriminated against one bit in primary school. Get me? Like, when it comes to teachers and shit. That's what's crazy, man. Like, I was like, when I tell you, there was a mixture. I think there was a bit more white people, but like, there was a lot of black people and Polish, Romanian, like, you get me, all ethnicities. Such a diverse, and there was no form of like, there was definitely groups that were formed, I admit. There was groups that were formed that were like full of black people, full of white people, you get me? But I was in a group where like, there was like, bro, all colors, all like, you get me? All colors. I was never in like a full black, full, you get me? I know, but I would speak to them like they're my, you get me? Like, I'm cool with them. I'm still cool with them now. Like, no, I never really had a problem with like race and shit. The only problem I really had was football. I would say when I joined the all white football team practically. Or these man, I don't know, man. It's just obvious that they're trying to distance themselves away from me, and they just didn't want to talk to me. I would warm up by myself and everything. I would literally warm up. I would like, I just wouldn't really chat to them like that. Even on the bench, I barely chat to them. I don't know, man. We just have different. I mean, like, there's no form of like bonding, bro. There's like, because our cultural differences, the way we speak, the way we like, the things we like are just completely different. Them man like going to the pub, bro. I'm like, yo, yeah, I'm good, bro. Alright, chat. I think we finna